You already know what you should be doing. You've known for a while now. So, why haven't you started? Here's something kind of uncomfortable to sit with. There's a version of you that already exists, somewhere in the future. Who figured it out? Who started the thing? Built the skill? Got in shape? Did the work? That version of you is real. They're not some fantasy. They're just the result of you actually doing what you already know you should be doing. And here's what's wild. The only thing standing between you and that person isn't money, or connections, or the right moment, or some secret information you don't have yet. It's a gap. A very specific, very quiet, very dangerous gap. The gap between knowing and doing. And in this video, I want to talk about what actually lives inside that gap, because it's not laziness. It's not that you're stupid or don't care enough. What's actually in there is way more interesting and honestly, way more painful than any of that. We're going to talk about why smart, self-aware people waste years of their lives. Why "I'll start soon" is one of the most expensive sentences you'll ever say. What procrastination is actually made of. And the one thing, not a hack, not a trick, the one thing that separates people who move from people who just wait. Stay with me on this one, because this might be one of those videos that follows you around for a while. Let's start somewhere real. Most people watching this aren't uninformed. You've probably watched videos about productivity, building habits, getting your life together, maybe read some stuff, had those long 1 a.m. internal monologues about what you need to change. You know things, you've got ideas, you have a sense of what direction you're supposed to be moving in, and yet, you're here, watching this, which means something isn't clicking yet, and that's not a criticism. Honestly, I get it, I've been there. I was that person for an embarrassingly long time. But it is worth asking, why? Why does the knowing not automatically become the doing? Because here's what school never taught us. Information and action are two completely different languages. You can be fluent in one and completely mute in the other. In our entire culture, social media, YouTube, podcasts, self-help, we are drowning in information. We are the most informed generation that has ever existed. We have access to more knowledge about how to build a business, get healthy, learn any skill, create any kind of life, than any human being who has ever lived. And we're also, somehow, really good at doing nothing with any of it. That's not a coincidence. That's a symptom of something deeper. Here's the thing about wasting your life that nobody tells you. It doesn't look like what you think it looks like. It's not dramatic. It's not some obvious train wreck. It doesn't even feel like failure. It just feels normal. Kind of comfortable, actually. It looks like scrolling for an hour before bed, telling yourself you'll sleep early tomorrow. It looks like having the same conversation with yourself about starting that project for the 4th month in a row. It looks like being genuinely excited about an idea for about 48 hours, and then letting it quietly dissolve back into the background of your life. It looks like I'll get serious about this after things calm down a little. Except things never actually calm down. It looks like being very busy, answering messages, doing small tasks, staying occupied, while somehow never making progress on anything that actually matters to you. That's what wasting your life looks like. Not some massive collapse, just a slow, quiet accumulation of small delays, day after day after day, until one day you look up and think, where did the last 2 years go? And the scariest part? It feels reasonable while it's happening. Every single postponement has a rational explanation. Now isn't the right time. I need to prepare more. I'll feel more ready after this thing is over. I just need to figure out a few more things first. These aren't lies exactly. They just happen to keep you in the exact same place, forever, while feeling like responsible, thoughtful planning. That's the trap. The delay doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like wisdom. So let me be very direct about something. If you're someone who knows what you want to build, knows roughly what you need to do, has thought about it for months or maybe years, and you still haven't started, your problem is not a lack of information. I know that might be annoying to hear, because information is so much more comfortable to consume than action is to take. Watching a video about starting a business feels productive. It gives you the sensation of moving forward without any of the risk. Reading another article about the mindset you need feels like preparation, and it is, kind of, for a while. But at some point, and this point comes earlier than most people admit, more information stops being preparation and starts being a very sophisticated form of hiding. You're not preparing anymore. You're waiting. And the question worth sitting with is, waiting for what exactly? Here's the real answer, and it's the one that tends to make people uncomfortable. You're waiting to feel ready. That's it. That's the whole thing. You're waiting for some internal signal and some click, some shift, some feeling of confidence and clarity and certainty that tells you now is the right moment to go. And you're going to be waiting for a very long time, because that signal doesn't come before you start. It comes after you've already been going for a while. Readiness is not a prerequisite for action. It's a result of it, and this is where the real problem lives, because this innocent, logical-seeming belief that you should feel ready before you begin is silently responsible for years of people's lives just evaporating. Think about it like this. You're standing at the edge of a pool in the middle of winter. You know it's going to be cold. You know the first second is going to be awful. You're thinking about it, planning the jump, imagining how you'll feel once you're in. You're telling yourself you'll go on 3, 1, 2. You don't jump. You wait a little longer. You recount. You think about it some more. And the longer you stand there, the colder you get. And the more impossible the jump feels, even though the water temperature hasn't changed. The only thing that changed is that hesitation started feeling like your natural state. That's the waiting to feel ready trap. The longer you stay in it, the more normal it becomes. And what starts as a delay slowly becomes a personality. Okay, so here's something I want to be real about, because I think the word stuck gets thrown around a lot without people really looking at what it means. When you say you're stuck, what is that? Like, actually, what's the texture of that experience? Because I'd argue, and this is where it gets a little uncomfortable, that what most people call being stuck is not really being stuck. Being stuck implies some external force holding you in place, a wall, a barrier, something outside of you, but most of the time, there's no wall, there's no barrier, there's just a habit, a very ingrained, very invisible habit of not moving. And over time, that habit becomes so familiar that inaction starts to feel like the default, like stillness is your natural state and motion requires some extraordinary effort, and this happens gradually. You don't decide to stop trusting yourself all at once. You just don't follow through, again, and again, and again. You say, I'll start Monday, and Monday comes and goes. You say, after the holidays, and the holidays end. You make a plan and don't execute it, and each time this happens, each small, seemingly insignificant moment of not following through, your brain is taking notes. It's learning that you don't mean it, that your own words aren't reliable, that the gap between what you say and what you do is just normal. And that erosion, that slow, quiet erosion of self-trust, is probably the most damaging thing about chronic procrastination. More than the lost time, more than the missed opportunities, it's that you stop believing yourself. And when you stop believing yourself, even small actions feel heavy, because somewhere in the back of your mind, you're not sure you'll actually do it. Why start something you're probably going to abandon? Why make the plan if you're probably just going to ignore it? The self-doubt becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and the procrastination gets layered until it genuinely starts to feel like part of who you are. I'm just not someone who finishes things. I'm always like this. I've never been good at following through. And here's the quiet tragedy. None of those things were originally true. They became true through repetition, through accumulated small moments of choosing avoidance over action. until the avoidance became the story you tell about yourself. So let's talk about what's actually underneath all of this. Because I don't think procrastination is really about laziness. I haven't met many genuinely lazy people. I've met a lot of scared people though. Procrastination, the real chronic kind, is almost always fear wearing a productivity costume. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of putting in effort and discovering you're not as capable as you hoped, fear of being seen, being known, being evaluated, fear of starting something and it being bad, because bad is painful, and we are really good at avoiding discomfort. But here's the genius move fear makes. It doesn't show up looking like fear. It shows up looking like wisdom, like practicality, like patience. I want to make sure I'm prepared before I launch. I'm still learning. I don't want to put something out that isn't good yet. I'm being strategic. I'm not rushing. These sound reasonable. They sound mature even. But for a lot of people, being strategic just means not starting, and not rushing just means not moving, and still learning just means still hiding. Here's one of the most honest things I can tell you. You will be bad at the thing before you're good at it. That's not pessimism, that's just how it works. There is no path to competence that doesn't go directly through incompetence first. There's no way to skip the ugly beginner phase. There's no shortcut around being unknown, uncertain, inconsistent, and kind of embarrassing at first. Every single person you look at and think, wow, they've really figured it out. Every one of them went through a period where they were terrible, where the work was bad, where nobody was watching, where they showed up anyway, did it badly, and did it again, and slowly got better. That's the path, the only path, and the people who actually build a life they're proud of are not people who found a way to skip that phase. They're people who accepted it, who said, okay, I'm going to be bad at this for a while, and that's just the cost of eventually being good at it, and then started anyway. Let me shift to something that doesn't get talked about enough, the actual cost of delay, not in some vague motivational sense, but concretely. Every day you don't start is a day someone else is gaining experience, real, compounding, irreplaceable experience. While you're thinking about starting a business, someone else is running a bad one and learning what not to do. While you're planning to get in shape, someone is 3 months into a streak and starting to see results. While you're almost ready to create content, someone else is posting their awkward early videos and building an audience. Experience compounds. The first 6 months of doing something difficult and unfamiliar are worth more than any amount of research about it. You learn things in the doing that you literally cannot access in the thinking. And every month you delay is a month of that experience you'll never get back. And when you're young, time is probably your single greatest asset. Not money, not connections, not talent, time. Because when you're young, failure is cheap. You can start something, have it not work, learn, and start again. And it costs you relatively little. The older you get, the more expensive failure becomes. Right now, your failures are affordable. Your ugly beginner phase is something you can move through quickly, if you just enter it. But every year you wait, the entry fee goes up a little. Here's something else that doesn't get talked about enough. The longer you delay, the more the delay becomes your identity. When you first procrastinate, it's just a behavior. But when you do it over and over for months or years, your brain starts filing it as a trait, part of who you are. And once something is part of your identity, once you believe you're just someone who doesn't follow through, or isn't disciplined, or always has great ideas but never executes, it becomes almost impossible to change through willpower alone. Because now you're not fighting a bad habit. You're fighting a story about who you are. And stories are sticky. They filter everything. When you fail, the story says, "See, that's just how I am." When you succeed, it sometimes dismisses it as a fluke. The identity becomes its own gravity. This is why trying harder, or getting motivated, doesn't really work for most people. Motivation is temporary. Willpower drains fast. What actually has to change is the story, and the only thing that changes the story is evidence. Repeated, consistent evidence that you are someone who does the thing. Small things, boring things, things you do anyway, and that slowly start rewriting what you expect from yourself. Okay, let me tell you something that I think about a lot. Something I find genuinely kind of haunting. Imagine yourself at 60 or 70. Some older version of you, sitting with the life you actually lived. Not the one you planned or imagined, the one you actually built. And imagine that older you looking back at this exact season of your life, thinking about the years spent waiting, not suffering, not struggling, just waiting, planning, almost, soon. What do you think that version of you would feel? I don't think it's anger. I don't even think it's sadness exactly. I think it's something closer to confusion. Like, I knew what I wanted. I knew roughly what I needed to do. Why didn't I just start? Not, why did I try and fail? That's easier to live with. Trying and failing is something you can respect yourself for. The regret that eats at people, the one that shows up at 3 a.m., is, why didn't I try when I knew I should have? That's the regret that doesn't soften with time. And here's the thing, you're not 70. You're here, right now. And the gap between who you are today and who you could become is still crossable. The version of you who started, who moved, who went through the ugly phase and came out the other side, that version isn't gone. They just haven't been given the chance to exist yet. You are, right now, writing the story that your future self will have to live with. Let me be honest about what the solution looks like. Because I don't want to give you another pep talk that feels great for 20 minutes and then fades. The solution is not finding the right motivation. Motivation follows action. It doesn't precede it. You don't feel like doing the thing and then do it. You do it, and then you feel like doing it more. The solution is not getting your mindset right before you begin. You fix your mindset in the doing, in showing up when it's uncomfortable, and discovering you can handle more than you thought. The solution isn't a better plan. You almost certainly don't need more planning. You need less planning and more moving. Here's what actually needs to happen. You need to start before you feel ready. Fully, completely, embarrassingly before you feel ready. You need to accept that the first version will be bad. Actually accept it, not just say the words, but hold the discomfort of it. You need to break the fantasy that there's a version where you skip the hard part. There isn't. And then you need to do something small. Not the whole thing. Not the final version. Something small. In the direction of the thing. Today. Not Monday. Not after the weekend. Today. Because here's what actually happens when you do that, even just once. You create evidence. Real evidence that you're someone who moves. And that evidence, tiny as it is worth more than any amount of inspiration or planning, because it's real, it's yours, your brain experienced it, and it slightly, incrementally rewrites the story. Do it again tomorrow. Do it again the day after. Not perfectly, imperfectly, messily, inconsistently at first, but doing it, and slowly, the identity shifts. Not because you willpowered your way through it, because you gave yourself enough evidence that the old story stopped being convincing. So let me bring this together. You're not wasting your life because you're uninformed. You're not wasting it because you're broken or uniquely undisciplined. You're not wasting it because success isn't possible for someone like you, or because the timing is wrong. You're wasting it, or risking wasting it, because the gap between knowing and doing is filled with something that feels like patience and planning, but is actually fear-driven avoidance. And that avoidance, practiced long enough, becomes a habit. And that habit, accumulated long enough, becomes a story. And that story, believed long enough, becomes an identity. And all of that started with something as quiet and ordinary as, I'll start soon. The life you want isn't locked behind some resource you don't have. It's not waiting for the right moment that will announce itself clearly. It's not hidden inside the next video or the next perfect plan. It's behind the thing you're avoiding, the uncomfortable beginning, the uncertain first attempt, the moment where you show up before you feel ready, do the thing badly, and discover that you can survive doing it badly. That bad is recoverable. That imperfect is okay. That you don't have to be good to start. You just have to start to eventually become good. Every single version of a life worth living runs through this, through choosing action over comfort, through tolerating the discomfort of beginning, through deciding that the cost of inaction, the slow erosion of your time, your self-trust, your possibility, is too high. The biggest regret isn't trying and failing, it's knowing and waiting anyway. You already know what you should be doing. The question is just whether you're going to make today the day you start doing it. If this one hit, and I think you know whether it did, watch the next video. It picks up right where this left off, and it goes somewhere that might surprise you.